We continue on with page 11, where we have some sources here. So the late Ashkenazic chief rabbi I.Y. Unterman raised yet another concern. In discussing the appropriate rabbinic attitude towards immigrants to Israel from Russia during the early 1970s, among whom were many intermarried couples, Rabbi Unterman advocated that rabbis demonstrate compassion and kindness. These immigrants should not be made to feel that the rabbis view them unfavorably. If conversions took place when the immigrants had not intended to fully live according to the mitzvot, one should not condemn such conversions, lest the public conclude that the rabbis were unreasonable when it came to dealing with conversions. Rabbi Unterman was not happy about conversions of this type, but he judged it better not to raise public opposition to them. Rabbi Zechariah HaKohen was a sage born in Yemen who immigrated to Israel and became a rabbi in Halal. He dealt with the issue of non-Jewish immigrants to Israel who were married to Jews and who were not living a strictly religious lifestyle. Should such people be accepted for conversion? Among his concerns, Rabbi HaKohen worried about consequences of not converting these intermarried people. How would they become integrated properly into Jewish Israeli society? What would be the status of their children? He wrote that we cannot demand that the convert observe all the 613 precepts at a time when most of those who were resettling him are themselves far from observing this number or even part of it. How can we demand that the convert themselves observe the Sabbath and the dietary laws, etc.? Such would be saying, do as I say, but not as I do. Rabbi HaKohen believed that conversion should be performed for the non-Jewish spouses. The hope was that the children of these marriages would learn more about Judaism in school and that they would influence the parents to become more observant religiously, which is a great point. How do you get them into the school if you're calling them non-Jews and you won't convert them? Then the children are not allowed in. So Rabbi Moshe HaKohen, born in Jerba, immigrated to Israel in the 1950s and became a dayan in the rabbinical court in Tveria. He too was concerned about the many Jewish immigrants to Israel who had non-Jewish spouses. These couples and their children needed to be integrated into Israeli society as Jews. Yet many of them resided in places where religious laws were not observed. They ate forbidden foods, they desecrated the Sabbath, etc. Even after conversion, there was little likelihood that these converts would be religiously observant. Should they be converted anyway? Rabbi HaKohen ruled that they indeed should be converted. He explained that Kabbalat HaMitzvot does not mean that the convert must commit himself to observe all the commandments. Rather, it means that he accepts all the commandments of the Torah in the sense that if he transgresses, he will be liable for such a punishment as he deserves. And if so, we do not care if at the time he accepts the mitzvot, he intends to transgress a particular commandment and accepts the punishment. This is not considered a flaw in his acceptance of the commandments. And it's interesting that it points out in this paragraph about all the people, the born Jews, that are eating forbidden foods and desecrating the Sabbath, etc. I had a conversation with a rabbi once, and I asked him, why do you find it acceptable to give somebody an aliyah? If they're driving on Shabbat, they're doing it publicly without shame, they're dangling their car keys around the shul. Why do you give them an aliyah? The Shulchan Aruch says one who desecrates Shabbat publicly is like one who denies the entire Torah. Yet you're giving this person honors in front of the whole community, and then you turn around and tell converts, well, if you're doing something that is against the Halacha, which is not even a Torah commandment, this is a rabbinical ruling, that somehow now we can nullify your conversions, and because a real convert wouldn't have violated any Halacha, so therefore your conversion must be invalid somehow. And his response was, well, it's not desecrating Shabbat if you drive on Shabbat if your mother's Jewish, because that's not the way they were desecrating Shabbat at the time that the Shulchan Aruch was written. But somehow that's how we can write off every Jew who's a convert who drives or, is learning it conservative or reform. So how bad is it then if you're saying, well, it's not really a desecration of Shabbat to drive here publicly, and we're going to honor you if your mother's Jewish? Could you do this in any other example? Could you take two Americans, one who was born in America and one who immigrated here legally, filled out all the paperwork, got their approval stamped? Can you say, well, we're going to honor this person who's doing things that are wrong, that we teach are wrong, because, he's born in America, his mother's American, but you came here. A real American wouldn't have traveled here and went through the process and got actual citizenship if they were going to violate this law that we're honoring people who have American mothers are violating publicly. It's just absurd. So we see then that conversions entails a broader range of considerations than simply whether the would-be convert will observe ritual law to the last detail. While we surely would like all born Jews and all converts to be fully observant of mitzvot, conversions may be halakhically sanctioned even when our ideal hopes are not likely to be realized. And going back to the last example that I gave about if a person is violating something, just like if you come to America, you're saying, I'm going to abide by the laws. If you don't know what one of them are, or even if, we call an avera missing the mark, not that you tried intentionally, but, you'll do better next time. You're going to be held responsible for any laws that you break. This is the agreement. This is actually the covenant. I agree to keep Torah. So, it only makes sense. If you tell a convert, well, if you were really converted and accepted all the mitzvot and the halacha, then you wouldn't have violated this. Then you're not Jewish. We can't give you an aliyah. Are you then saying you're now somehow off the hook? What's the difference between this and a Catholic priest saying, well, Hashem will forgive you if you say this many Hail Marys, or you're not actually going to be held responsible because I, the priest, say you're not really a Catholic? We make fun of people in other religions that do these types of things, and then we turn around and do the exact same thing, and then yell anti-Semitism if anybody calls it out. Anyway, that's page 11. We'll move on to page 12 with the next video.